It's all about eyesight.
That verse, I felt that way my whole life.
So this is welcome change.
By the way, this is the best time I've ever had on the talk
I'm
show.
cool with all the gods. Gods recognize gods.
The only true currency in this bankrupt world is what you share with someone else when you're on.
Man, I'm so excited about today. So, I'm really looking forward to today's episode because rarely do I get the opportunity to speak to somebody who is genuinely someone I consider a good friend about new music and about music that they've just recently recorded. And there's something really special about talking to somebody who's just released their first record or their first LP. They're going through the motions for the very first time. What I find incredible about this kind human being in front of me here is that he's willing to show us his journey from the very beginning. This isn't like a documentary that starts halfway through. This is like you are seeing the bare bones of this person and where they're going to go from here. And I'm really excited. I cannot believe the length that he has come in such a very short period of time. We're going to talk about his story and everything coming up here in a few minutes, but it's genuinely a pleasure of mine to introduce you to Mr. Jon Lodge. Jon and I go back to my very first few weeks here at Durham College. One of the first people I considered a friend. We've bonded over the few years, being both part of Riot Radio, who are the biggest supporter of the show. And Jon and I became friends, and one day he was showing me lyrics. Next thing I know, he's got songs, and next thing you know, he's got someone producing them. And then he's got it recorded, and then he's got it released, and he's got his Spotify set up. And then one day I'm like, do you play an instrument? And he's like, no. Like, how do you write songs? It's taken me probably 20 years to write, one song, let alone Jon writing, I think, probably up to 10 at this point. But just a great overall, all-around human being, and I love when I have these opportunities. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me be the first person to introduce you to Mr. Jon Lodge. I'm here with Jon Lodge.
How's it going, buddy?
Oddly enough, this is like our first show together.
Yeah. We spend a lot of time talking together, but this is a little bit different.
So, Jon Lodge is a fellow former student.
Yes, I'm a graduate now.
That's right. And we are back at the place where we first met. I thought it would be kind of a fitting scenario for our interview, and Jon has ventured from being a one-of-a-kind broadcaster into foraying into recorded music, original recorded music.
Yes, it's been a interesting journey, Jordan. Not one that I expected to be on.
So, I think what you've done is the path that it's least followed. So, you went with, instead of starting out playing covers, you started out just flat out writing your own material. And I was curious because not a lot of people start out that way. What was the reason you did that? Was it conscious? Was it subconscious? Did you choose, you know what, I want to skip the covers thing, everyone's doing that? Like, was it a conscious decision? Do you say, I just want to write my own stuff?
There's an interesting story behind all this.
Okay.
I got a buddy named Cody, and he writes rap, and I would chill with my friend all the time, and it was just this silly stuff, right? And I was like, man, I could do that. So I started doing that. I started writing rap, and I've got a book full of rap stuff that I will never show anybody, but has actually been looked at as pretty good. But and then coming home one day from his house, perfecting my rap, I had KX96 on, right, and I was just like, man, I really want to try it and write a country song, right? So I left the music on, but I tuned out the lyrics,
right,
and I just listened to the melody and I listened to the beat. And the lyrics I swear to God, this sounds so cheesy, this sounds so stupid. They fell out of the universe into my brain, right? And that's how Wouldn't Be Me started. I was just I heard a melody on the radio, and it's a completely different melody from what we ended up using, but it helped me get that first step into writing that first song.
That's killer. So this wasn't one of those things where you saw everyone else playing covers and wanted to do something different. This is just how music struck you. as a huge connoisseur of music, I will say that a lot of artists feel that that's their only way to really write good songs, is that whatever comes to them naturally. In fact, I'm pretty sure it might be different now, but when Jack Johnson was first starting out, he said that if he couldn't remember the song, it didn't count. So I think that's interesting, because for years, I mean, I couldn't write to save my life. Where every time I wrote a song, it was just borrowed lines of other people's songs. So it's a huge kudos to you that you're able to do that. And I was wondering, why country? Other than when you heard the melody on KNX 96, were you a country fan beforehand? Was it something you grew up with?
Yeah, mom and dad, always KX 96. We moved up here from Newfoundland in 1994, and even before then, it was the Newfie country station. I couldn't tell you, I was so young, I couldn't tell you what station it was back then. But I grew up on it. I grew up on Gaither gospel music, and Garth Brooks and Tim McGraw and Faith Hill and Trisha Yearwood and George Strait, and I could keep going on and on and on. And I think that you'll realize, and people will realize if they get a chance to listen to the music, that my inspirations are there. You see that I don't just write cookie cutter songs.
Yeah.
My lyrics have a meaning.
Yeah. The one thing I've noticed is that a lot of people, even friends that I grew up with that make the transition into writing songs or even country music, they seem to sort of take on the, I guess, quote unquote, country persona. And what I like about you is that although all the marketing photos and stuff are really well done and represent like the male singer-songwriter thing, they weren't like you up on top of a horse or in the back of a pickup truck, holding a Dixie cup. Like you didn't fall into that natural foray. And was that something you thought about? If I'm going to market myself, it seems more genuine if you're just being, a lad from the East Coast.
I wanted photos that reminded me of where I grew up.
Right.
And the name of the album, Growing Up East Coast, it means a lot to me. And if you've been my friend throughout the years, and I mean, it's a new friendship between me and you, but even when I was younger, I would always tell people that growing up back in Newfoundland or over in Newfoundland, wherever you want to look at the map and call it, it helped me become the man I am. It helped me shape into, or give me the mentality and give me the humbleness. I am kind of rambling here, but it's a more of a wholesome place. And I can't say that it is now, because every place changes, and when you move on, you go back, it just seems different. But for me, growing up there, being able to play on dump trucks and in new developments,
kitchen parties,
and and then run down the street, and then not have to worry about or have your parents worry when you're coming home, because it was a safe place.
I know what you mean. And listen, a part of me is this interview is very much about you, but a part of me wishes that there was a little bit more East Coast at times in some of the areas, not every day and not every hour, but right now I'm thankful we don't have any more snow than we do. But,
oh my goodness!
I think that everyone could use a little bit more East Coast, and I think that I like the reflection of that in the music. And I mean, where you've got Irish traditional music, and then it takes on a maritime feel when it comes over across the pond. And I feel like with your writing style and where you're going with it, you've got the storytelling aspect down to it that's very famous with the East Coast, but it's still enough. And it's still written. It's not written like Barrett's Privateers, where it's just one long story about people on a ship going, dying aboard a ship and stuff. It's still got a country feel in the way that it's like beautifully simplistic, but you've still got that storytelling part. And although the song, you have the 5 songs in the EP,
4 songs,
right? And then is that going to be something that you continue, or do you think you're going to get a little bit more like cryptic in your songwriting?
I have a few written right now. One which is a more of a story, like Barrett's Privateers.
Yeah.
I decided not to record it because I didn't know if it would fit the flow of this EP.
Sure.
But there are songs that I have written in my catalog right now that are a little bit different, and there are ones that are super catchy, like super hooky. I have a song about going to the bonfire on Friday night.
Perfect.
Right? And it's just a good old party song, right?
It's relatable stuff, right? You're not going too existential and saying stars are shining with the shimmer of hope. Like it just seems to me like I could listen to these songs and show them to anybody and knowing that they would get them on first listen, but know that if they kept listening to them, they would probably discover a little bit more. And what the first thing that stood out to me was just that each song's in a different key, which I thought was really interesting because everyone knows that listens to country music or studies country music that you can, most country songs should start in the key of D. But I noticed there was a lot of other stuff in here, and for someone who to dive in on their first record or their first release, I should say, because it's considered an EP. Was that an approach? Because I mean, I'm not trying to pull the rug up for anybody, but you're not a player of a particular instrument by trade. You're one of those traditional writers, and I was just wondering, when you were thinking of ideas or how you wanted the songs sound, how you wanted the songs to sound, was it important that each one sounded different?
That actually happened by accident.
Oh, nice.
I sing the songs as my soul wants to.
Yes.
As silly as that sounds, I try to make them come out as natural as possible because I want my soul to connect to the listener.
Right.
I want them to feel what I'm feeling in that moment. But after they were all recorded and mastered, I listened to them back and I noticed that as well.
Yeah.
I was just like, wow, I sang these in almost 4 different registers.
Absolutely.
Right? And it was quite interesting to me, and I love the fact that I did that because to me it shows my vocal range. Right. If you go to "I Want to Know You," I hit some baritone notes,
super low
notes,
yeah.
and actually those made me nervous because I didn't know if I was hitting those right because I don't live in that area.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you've got. I mean, even the way you're speaking now, your voice kind of sits at like kind of a higher. Like not soprano, but like kind of like in that middle range. It's similar to me, but you don't come across as a guy with a deep voice.
No.
So it sometimes it's even harder to sing low than it is to sing high.
Yeah, 100%. But I kind of lost myself here. Getting back to the way they were written, if they were written to be separate, they weren't written specifically in that way. But I think it gives a good representation of who I am because you've known me for a year and a half now, and I have so many sides, right? There's so many different sides to me, and that shows in my music now, right? I'm not a one-sided person. I'm not one way.
For people that are listening that don't know Jon like I do, or might know Jon even better than I do, Jon is now a very successful person who is great behind a mic, knows how to run his own show, good at broadcasting, has a wealth of experience as a cook and a chef as well, and now is foraying into music. So I think in 2 years you'll do archaeology, try something else out. I remember getting the demo, the kind of one of the first the passes of Wouldn't Be Me, and the first thing I thought was that, this was so much. I was jealous in the sense that it was so much better than the first thing that I'd ever written, and I don't know what it's like. And I'm trying to put myself in your shoes because I really have no idea what this is like. When you first listened to that cut of the song, were you kind of like, okay, yeah, that's what I wanted, or were you like, my mind is blown? Like, what was that experience? Because you kind of hit the ground running.
The song was actually written as a ballad.
Oh,
it was written as a super slow, tear-jerky ballad.
Yeah.
And then I met up with Dan McAnally, the producer, and writer of all of the music. And he's just like, let's speed this up a couple ticks here. Let's see if we can get a better groove going. And I gave it to him, and he worked his magic. And then it actually took me a little bit to get used to singing it in that way.
Demoitis, they call that. You're used to saying it one way, and then you can't get your head around it after. That's a real thing. It happens to a lot of people.
Yeah, it was definitely interesting for me, and especially seeing as he actually added a couple lines as well.
Oh, nice.
He didn't write them himself, but what he did was he took them from previous parts of the song that I'd already written and rearranged them.
Oh, nice. So an arrangement thing.
Yeah.
See, that's kind of an unsung thing with production. And I'm sure, the work that Dan did is fantastic because, Dan's, as, again, background for people, was our station manager, is still the station manager here at Riot Radio. And I knew Dan was very, very crafty and a very technical-based guy. I knew he was a musician. But it's one thing for Dan and I to talk about all like the emo and punk bands that we like. To hear what he did on the record really surprised me because I went like, whoa, like to me this doesn't seem like it's in Dan's alley. Which kind of, I guess I'm admitting my own ignorance in a way. But the fact that he was able to sort of seamlessly produce this wonderfully arranged country stuff was obviously he was the right choice. And was it an obvious thing for you to work with Dan, or was it just a matter of circumstance because you guys are friends?
I think it was a majority Dan that got this going. I came in here one day and I just busted an a cappella for him, and I don't know if I blew his socks off, but I know I impressed him.
Yeah.
And he got to work. He put his nose down to the grindstone. He started doing some research. He was looking at the top country artists at the time, what they were releasing, what they sounded like, what they looked like, everything. He put so much work into this, so many hours upon hours, and I can't thank him enough. Everyone sees my face. They see my name, and they think this is all me. Yeah. But really, the work that was done behind the scenes, I cannot thank Dan enough.
I've made my share of mistakes, but only God will know the different path my story takes. There's one thing that's for sure. Oh, I wouldn't be me. No, I wouldn't be me. The mistakes I make and the roads I take shape who I'm gonna be. Oh, I wouldn't be me. No, I wouldn't be me. I won't alter fate. I can't bear to hate the reflection that I see. Could have had a better job. Could have done things the right way. Never found out what my soul was aching to say. I took the rougher road, yeah, one that was well worn. Often looking to the sky, wondering why I was ever born. Had to live with my mistakes, love the man that I've become. 'Cause time's like a butterfly, you can't change just one. Oh, I wouldn't be me. No, I wouldn't be me. The mistakes I make and the roads I take shape who I'm gonna be. Oh, I wouldn't be me. No, I wouldn't be me. I won't alter fate. I can't bear to hate the reflection that I see. Thinking back through time and the memories of my life, wondering about some things that I just might do twice. Oh, I wouldn't be me. No, I wouldn't be me. The mistakes I make and the roads I take shape who I'm gonna be. Oh, I wouldn't be me. No, I wouldn't be me. I won't alter fate. I can't bear to hate the reflection that I see.
I mean, Dan, for those of you who don't know him, is just one of the greatest living human beings. Like, I just love that man, and he'll hear this. Actually, this will be sort of a test to see if he listens. How about we do that? We'll see how much we talk about how much we love Dan, and then we'll let him come to us and see if he listens to the episode or not. Okay, so obviously, I would be remiss not to do some hard-hitting questions.
Sure.
All right. So, having never performed live, what are your live plans? Are there anything in the works? Are you have a band being set up?
I currently am looking for a band.
Excellent.
I have a couple people in mind, but it's one of those things where I almost need to look at professional musicians, and I can't really afford to pay professional musicians at this point, right? So I either have to look at Craigslist style stuff where I'm like, anyone want to play for free, and then I'll give you a cut of whatever show, and then wherever we go from there, or I end up having to spend a fortune for professional musicians. So right now we're kind of in limbo when it comes to playing live, but there are plans to play live. I should say that I haven't never performed live.
But
I have
not this material.
Well, I was just going to say I have never performed live by myself. I have history in choir. I have history in the church and youth band, in singing in front of a church. But there's a difference, right? Like a bar, a bunch of people drinking booze.
Yeah, you got to
right?
sing over them.
I got to sing over them, and I got to deal with. They're not going to be as forgiving as a church.
Oh gosh, no.
Right? A church isn't going to boo you off the stage.
We're not saying those people in the bar aren't Christian. We're just saying that
No.
it's a setting, right?
Yeah, the setting. They're more apt to be like, get off the stage, man, you suck, right?
Yeah.
And I guess I'm getting beyond the fact where I think that. I don't think that I suck, but for years and years, and I blame American Idol for this.
Absolutely.
I really blame American Idol for this. All the people that they showed on TV saying that they could sing, and everyone told them that they could sing, and then they sound like a bag of dying cats.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, it's the reality of it. So you'll obviously get some live live gigs or performances with this stuff. Is the plan then to wait a little while for this stuff to sort of materialize? That's available right now online, or are you thinking I want to get right back into it and record some more?
Well, the beauty of this stuff is, and I don't want to give away too much, but me and Dan have actually discussed re-recording these songs in an acoustic tone, stripping it right down so that we can show another side of this EP. But like I said, I do have other stuff written still, and I'm working on stuff, maybe not every day, but at least every week.
So
I'm
you're
working
writing
on
cycle.
Yeah, I'm trying to write something new. And man, I got to tell you, the Kobe Bryant thing really hit me hard.
A lot of people, yeah.
yeah.
I saw Brian. Remember the guy? What's his name? Brian McKnight.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
The guy, like, one will make a dream come. He was so moved by the whole thing that he wrote a song apparently, and it's making kind of its way around the internet right now. And I noticed that somebody else as well they were so heavily hit by this. And a little bit of background on Jon. Jon is a massive sports fan, one of the most knowledgeable people I know about a variety of sports, like kind of a jack of all trades and a master of all. So I would imagine, and Jon was actually the one that broke the news to me via text. And as soon as I saw it, I jumped online, and sadly it was TMZ. It couldn't have been somewhere else, but it was. I was driving home. It was my anniversary weekend. We were driving home from Deerhurst up in Muskoka, and Jon just sent me a text just telling me what had happened, and we jumped online. My wife was driving at the time, and she was like, "What is going on?" And to know how big of a sports fan you are, and how Jon is like me in the sense that we both enjoy and hate greatness. So like we love hating on the great, but secretly we will have conversations about how much we appreciate it. We hold those athletes to a high standard, and we've had a lot of conversations about LeBron or John Jones or people that we have these high levels of expectation of, and I can only imagine what was your reaction to that?
Tears, 100% tears, and I'm not embarrassed to say that. For days. Anytime I would see a tribute, my eyes would well up, and I feel things. I'm not saying that I'm different than everybody else, but there are certain people who feel things deeper. Mm-hmm. I call myself an empath. I feel emotions at a different level, and sometimes it works for writing music, but sometimes it's detrimental. I was driving at the time I was working, and I had to pull over and sit for a half an hour till I could compose myself. This man I've never met before in my life. Right. I have no connection to other than the fact that I watched his entire career.
Exactly.
I watched him grow up as I grew up.
Yeah.
And it caused a familial connection with this.
Yeah.
It was like losing a part of me. And I can only imagine. I can only imagine what his family is feeling or has felt. Yeah. I actually do have a song in the works. And if I can share one line with you, it's The City of Angels has 9 more souls.
Wow.
And I don't want to give away too much, but
nice preview there.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I don't know if I'll ever be able to release that because will I ever be able to sing it?
Exactly. And you know what? And sometimes writing that stuff is just, it's for you anyways. You don't have to release. There's no sort of written rule that you have to perform and record everything you've ever written. Otherwise, there'd be a gun to the head of, almost every artist that we know. I find it interesting though, and I've only had a few opportunities to talk about this with other people, and I've been kind of dying to talk to you about this, but there's only a handful of people I think transcend sports the way that Kobe did. And when I relate that to even like actors or music or it depends how, I guess, into the art scene that you are, but there's certain characters no matter where you are that not transcend sports because of their popularity, but just transcend sports as far as like, the Players Tribune stuff, all the different charities. People were remarking about his transgressions, the way that he dealt with that, and came out and discussed it. And Kobe Bryant was a great basketball player, but he was also just so much more. And I think he meant more to people because of that.
Yeah, 100%. He instilled a drive in people without actually doing it.
Yeah.
He didn't come to my house and say, this is how it's done. He showed me on the TV when he scored 81 points against the Raptors and brought that team back against Toronto. Toronto was winning that game. Yeah. And he brought him back and took that win down, and it was one of his last games. I think it was his last season in the number 8. So what Kobe did for everyone, and the reason why he's so universally loved is because he helped an entire world grow up and believe that, like Kevin Garnett said, anything is possible. Yeah. You've just got to put the drive, the determination, and the work ethic in to do it. I wrote a little piece about Kobe, and I spoke it on the sports show, the post-game press conference. And I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but man, I'm getting a little bit emotional thinking about it now. He taught people that. Sorry, let me start over there. Seeing as this can be edited, Will
it be edited? Okay, of course.
Yeah.
Fuck. There you go. That has to be edited.
Yeah. In a world where everyone looks at athletes and thinks it's effortless.
Yes.
Right? He showed you that it was not effortless. He showed you the work and the everyday mentality that it took to be the greatest player on the hardwood.
Even when he wasn't.
Yeah, he was always amongst those guys, right? And this is a guy who's drafted 13th overall, not a first overall pick.
I know. Every time they say that, it's like the Tom Brady stat.
Yeah.
It messes me up.
Yeah, so Kobe, I think that's why the death of Kobe is felt so much. And everyone says that there were 8 others or 7 others, Kobe and Gianna, aside from Kobe and Gianna, who died. And yes, we need to remember all of those people. But what people need to realize is that as much as those other people impacted people in their own personal lives, Kobe Bryant impacted the globe.
I also say to people that I've heard that argument, and I've heard it been discussed, especially on sports radio and stuff like that. And to be honest, those people lived their life in a I guess I don't want to say private, but like in a small community public basis. Kobe Bryant has spent his entire NBA career, plus add a few years here and there, inside of the mainstream media news and public eye. And I think when you live your life in that community, you're represented in that community. He plays how many games in the NBA season? 82 times 20. That's how many cities he visited in. That's how many interviews he did in each one. He lived that life, plus the extracurricular stuff, right? The award shows, the Players Tribune stuff, like the ESPYs. He was at the Grammys. He does this extracurricular stuff. You're in the public eye. You're celebrated and remembered in the public eye. And for the other 7 people that were on it's still horrific what happened to them. And the truth is, I don't know anything about them, and I feel oddly bad about that, considering what I've heard about them after. But I feel like this is the only way you would remember Kobe. I guess I'm getting super deep here, but I just feel like that argument sometimes is a bit distasteful, only in my opinion, because that's how Kobe would have been remembered. The guy who was the key grip on a movie that Leonardo DiCaprio was in wouldn't be remembered the same way Leonardo DiCaprio would be. I think it's fair. Yeah.
It's fair in the realm of he was a world type of figure, exactly. Right? It's not fair that person's family doesn't get the admiration from the world that everyone else is getting, but in that same breath, Vanessa Bryant has to deal with the world media still, and everybody else can just not move on, but deal with their own personal stuff and deal with the funerals and deal with all that. Whereas the Bryant family is forever and always will be in the media.
Yeah, and it's really interesting. Anytime that people have had loss in their life, the people that survive them always are left with things that build up. And one thing that I guess Vanessa would have to deal with, and the family have to deal with, that you wouldn't expect, is that there would be Kobe's media attention now going right on them and her daughters. So she'll be grieving internally and externally, and then you'll have this, and you can, like, it'll be the first time heard here if no one's talked about it. There will be, like, public pressure for her to start making appearances because of this thing. And then, if it doesn't get handled the right way according to the public, then people might turn on her, which I think is a horrific thing to begin with anyways.
Yeah, I mean, I would just love to see people leave her alone.
Yeah, me too.
Let the family grieve. It's going to take a long time, and not only did they lose the patriarch of the family, they lost she lost her eldest daughter.
Yeah.
Or, sorry, second eldest daughter.
Yeah. So when you talk about, like, the Mamba mentality, do you think you'll apply that to your music? Do you have?
I think I have.
Yeah.
I think I have applied it to my music in bits and spurts. I don't have what Kobe has, man.
No.
Whatever Kobe had is generational. It
Absolutely.
is one of those things that where only a select few people have that sort of drive. Connor McDavid is one of them.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
In music, you could say Prince or
people that just never stop.
Yeah,
it's a daily
people who
thing.
just keep going. Michael Jackson, as much as he has bad history, he's got catalogs of music that has yet to be released.
Unparalleled work ethic. He would go in the studio. Actually, oddly enough, I should have made that parallel. He would go in the studio and just go, and then the producers would go, okay, let's make it sound like that. So I don't know if you knew that about Michael Jackson.
No, I didn't.
He would walk in and literally just be like, it's going to sound like this. And he could touch instruments and kind of have an idea, but he wasn't a riff writer. He would just walk in, and Quincy Jones would be there, and he'd just be like, I want it to be like, dun, dun, and he would just tell you how he wanted it to sound.
He just scat it for you, like a great jazz performer.
Yeah, so I think you guys, and that's built-in gospel as well, so the whole background's there. In the area, what Oshawa lacks a little bit is the opportunity and the stages and for developmental artists. And there's other, like, bands, whether they're punk bands or country artists, that the opportunities are limited. So where do you go out to see acts that are sort of like your peers? Or where do you go to get your live music fix? Or how do you ingest music?
Uxbridge has a great country music scene and a great music scene. I'd like to go out there, but most of the time, it's just... I'm kind of an introvert. I know I come out as like an extrovert sort of person, so I'm like right in the middle, but I like my alone time.
Yeah.
And so I'll spend time in my room with my notepad, and I will just listen to Luke Combs, and I'll listen to Kane Brown, and I'll listen to Garth, and I'll listen to, it's just a mixture. I just throw my mix on YouTube, and I just sit there and I immerse myself in all of it, new, old, everything. And I just try to feel what they felt when they wrote, or when they're performing, or the mindset they're trying to get across, because I have grown up from a teenager to a young man in an era where country music almost turned to pop music.
Yeah.
And I didn't like that.
I think it's getting back to it, though. I think it's getting back to its roots.
Yeah, and that's why I wrote the music the way I wrote it. One of my favorite artists growing up was Tim McGraw.
Oh, yeah. Man.
And if you listen to my music, you'll hear a lot of Tim McGraw on there as well. And it's just the way he tells a story, and not just the way he tells it, but what it's about. It's about being humble. It's about being a good person. It's about life. Even when it's a fun song, it's about experiences. It's not about things. It's not about drinking. It's not about it's deeper.
Yeah.
It's been a long road, it's been a ride. Life is a journey with no map or guide. The person that you want to be is a hard goal to attain. And when you fall just short, it's so hard to explain. Every road that you take might not be the way. Follow the voice inside, hear what it says. persevere, find the cure for what ails you and the ones you love. Some choose God or faith, most look into the sky above. Been through the ringer, never heard the 10 count. Been knocked a few times, but never knocked out. Yeah, I don't know how far I'll go. Put one foot in front of the other till the end of the road. Yeah, I don't know how far I'll go. Put one foot in front of the other till the end of the road. Yeah, I don't know how far I'll go. Put one foot in front of the other till the end of the road. Yeah, I don't know how far I'll go. Put one foot in front of the other till the end of the road. Yeah, I don't know how far I'll go. Put one foot in front of the other till the end of the road. Yeah.
I got an interesting story about End of the Road. Do you want to hear it?
Of course I do.
So, we, like I said, we've known each other for a little bit, and you know that I did my internship at Sportsnet.
That's right.
Well, you live and you learn.
Of course.
Things happened where I maybe said a couple things on Twitter I shouldn't have near the end of my internship, and
As we all do.
I got let go. And the day I got let go, I wrote that song.
Really?
The day I got let go. So that song is literally about me not knowing where the hell I'm going.
Yeah.
Up, down, left, right, and then I was just, we just got to keep pushing forward.
Yeah.
And you keep pushing forward, and then whatever happens, happens, man.
Yeah.
And then this happened. So
The Hollywood Reporter does these things called roundtables, and they had all the different actors of this year on, and I think it was Jamie Foxx, Robert De Niro, Shia LaBeouf, but the one that was there was Tom Hanks.
Oh, I love Tom Hanks.
He's the man. And it was really reflective, and they're all just in awe of Robert De Niro. They're like, oh my God, we love him so much and all that stuff. And they were asking them what advice they could go back and tell their 20-year-old selves. And they all had different answers, and they're all good answers. And Tom Hanks, of course, just had this really amazing, simple one, and he just said that this too shall pass. But he started off by saying it always applies to things that are negative. Things will always get better. But what he didn't say was to always remember that when they were good, that this moment will also pass, and if this moment too shall pass. And I used to apply it in the sense of good, but I almost forgot it apply. No, sorry. I always remembered it when things were bad, but I never remembered it when things were good. And what he does is he does it when things are good, so he stays even. And when things are bad, he feels that he can get back to even too. But he said, in that period of you reminding yourself will always be your most creative, your most developmental, and that's when you really learn. And it goes back to something else he was saying, is that you only grow from struggling. And I think, who wouldn't? To be honest, I feel like Sportsnet's now changed a lot, for better, for worse. And I guess you can probably talk more about it with me another time when we talk about sports. But, you may have almost sort of dodged a bullet in that way. It just seems the direction they're going is just strictly business now.
Yeah, it's interesting. And you brought up, I want to hit on that Tom Hanks quote, this too will pass, right? You said that people only think about that when it's the hurt. And I have a thought for that. The reasoning behind that for me is because, and I can thank Papa Roach for a specific
Absolutely.
line for this. The bad things leave scars.
Yeah.
The good things don't.
Yeah.
The scars remind us that the past is real. And that's why people, this too will pass is so associated with bad things, because, well, when something good happens, it doesn't leave a mark on my body, my soul, my mind, nothing, right? But when someone dies, when you lose something, it leaves a mark on you, an indelible mark, one that's always there.
Right.
And I think that right there is why we notice the bad more than the good. I actually do have a song about that as well in the works.
It's just interesting because, like, at your high, like, when you're riding on top of the world, if you're like, okay, well, nothing's going to touch me, I'm going to be great forever. Like, you're going to fall hard. Like,
Look at Demi Lovato.
There you go. Perfect. You know, and like, you've got to remember that when things are great, this too shall pass. You know, like, you're going to come back down to even eventually. And if you want to, you know, I mean, we're both sports guys. Big fight coming up next weekend, right? They got the Tyson Fury boxing match. The guy was literally 150 pounds over the heavyweight limit at one point, right? He had to lose all that weight. Like, he said once he beat Klitschko, he was like, world conquered, job done. There was no now what. And Tom Hanks is kind of saying, like, there's always a now what. Your now what is, well, like, he's won 2 Oscars. Right, and then still goes to work, still gets up and does that stuff. So I thought that kind of fit the whole spirit of the conversation a little bit as we talked about Kobe and, like, that mentality of just getting up and making sure you get stuff done every day. You know,
make sure you do something every single day.
Get it.
I don't want to hang too long on Tom Hanks, but there is one other quote, and I believe it was at the Golden Globes or the SAG Awards or whatever, but he got up on the mic and he said, steal. If you're not stealing something from somebody you know, then you're not getting better. That was this
award season. That's right. Yeah,
and that's what I do.
Yeah.
Yes, you know, I've had friends say, "Man, this song sounds something like something I've heard before." And I was like, "Yeah, you know what? You're probably right because that's what I do. I will take things that I love, ways someone croons their voice, the way someone holds a note, the style of a melody. I'll take little bits and pieces and I meld it into my own thing.
Yeah,
right. And I make it my own, and that's what Tom was saying. Is just like, man, you see people doing great things. Well, copy it.
Sure.
Copy it, make it your own, and move on with it. Because you know what? If someone doesn't copy what Tom Hanks is doing, when Tom Hanks dies, it's gone.
Growing up on ground where my dad he raised 10 different kinds of hell back in his younger day. Yeah, he ran the streets so wild and so free. A small town country boy had a world to see. He left for the city, the lights that were so bright. Growing up East Coast has its perks, you see. Small towns all around connecting you and me. And in the big city, things they aren't the same. For a small town country boy, it's hard to explain. Fast forward some years, that country boy he knew a mistake had been made that he could undo. He grabbed his wife and kids, went out on the road, driving back to a place he wanted them to know. 'Cause in the big city, things they just weren't right. Growing up East Coast has its perks, you see. Small towns all around connecting you and me. And in the big city, things they aren't the same. For a small town country boy, it's hard to explain. Going back to the ground where my dad was raised, shaped me into the man that I am today. Growing up East Coast has its perks, you see. Small towns all around connecting you and me. And in the big city, things they aren't the same. For a small town country boy, it's hard to explain. Yeah, the big city and its lights so bright can't hold a candle to a starlit country night.
What I love about country music now is that there's actually a lot of folklore that I didn't know, and maybe it's just because I'm not as immersed as I am in other genres, and I'm starting to do better in that regard. But like, I didn't realize there's things like Chris Stapleton wrote "Drink a Beer," which I didn't know, and then he's also he plays his backup vocals are on the actual recording. You can barely hear them, but they're there. Or the lady that wrote Humble and Kind also wrote Girl Crush. And then you when you dig back, you find out all these cool things about different singer-songwriters or different songwriters that give it to singers. And which brings me to my next question: are you always going to be dead set on singing your own stuff, or would you be willing to work with people in a co-writing session?
Oh, 100% willing to work with anybody.
Yeah.
I've just got to believe the lyrics. I'm not going to sing something that I can't emotionally get behind.
Exactly.
And that doesn't mean I'm not going to sing a party song or I'm not going to sing an upbeat song. Right. But it's got to speak to me. It's got to be a piece of me in some way.
Right.
And like I said, man, there's so many sides to who I am, what makes up Jon Lodge, that there are a lot of things available out there to me, but I'm totally open to working with other singer-songwriters.
You're not defined by one thing or one mood. And I mean, it would almost seem odd to me if you had, 15 slow, sappy ballads. I'm like, no, I know Jon is a guy full of life, full of joy, and has a good time when he wants to. Okay, so... if I was gonna, I got introduced to Wouldn't Be Me first, right? Now that the 4 songs are done, where would you want someone else to start from? Because I'm not asking you to pick your favorites, because I think they're all amazing efforts. I know where I started, which is kind of whatever you gave me. But for someone who's listening, who's about to go on Spotify and check out Jon Lodge, that's without the H, by the way, Jon. Where would you want them to start? Would you want them to start with Growing Up East Coast? Would you want them to start the way I started? I don't imagine you'd want them to start with End of the Road, but
well, that's the funny thing is that's what we started with, because we built the album that way because we wanted people to not turn away from a slow song right away.
Oh, right.
Right.
Yeah,
so we wanted something to get people in and invested in the album. Then we moved on to a slower song. Then we moved on to the slowest song.
Right.
Right. And then we picked it up with the back end with Growing Up East Coast, the title song. Sorry, as I try to get it out of my brain here. But yeah, no, I think I would say start off or play it as it's listed right now, because that's the way it was constructed by me and Dan.
Andrew Pearson and I, our friend Andrew from the Mosh Pit, I said the exact same thing, is that he goes, man, I love these parts of listening to you interview people. So that's awesome. I'm like, I like these parts about you. And then it's like, but you got to think to yourself, what don't you like? And he said, oh, I don't want to. I'm like, no, you're being nice. I love that. But take the things that you think I do, the questions I ask, the way I approach things, apply it to your show. Just don't do my show front to back with the same people, and then you're not ripping it off, which is what that is. But if you are doing things and skills and techniques and you're borrowing, and that to me is
imitation. It's the finest form of flattery.
Homage, an homage. Like, man, Jordan really does good with this question, or I really like the way Luke Combs wears his hat, or whatever, And by the way, if you can only listen to this because there's no video, but Jon is a better looking version of Luke Combs. So I think that if you were to borrow from Brothers Osborne, Luke Combs, Tim McGraw, these people who are giants, right? I think everyone in their own regard is always standing on the shoulder of giants, the people that have come before us, right? Whether it's your father, whether it's the music you loved, whether it's the music you still love, whether it's your teachers, it's always about giving back. In the spirit of that, my friend, I think we have to give back the studio.
Probably, yes. It looks like it.
So, ladies and gentlemen, please go check out Jon Lodge on Spotify. Are we on?
We are on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, iTunes. We are on the whole lot of it. We're on Napster.
Oh, amazing. So Jon Lodge, the album's called Growing East Coast.
Growing Up
East Coast. It's a 4-song EP. And it's released by Nerve Shot Records, which I will also throw out there. Big shout out to our friends here in the Riot Radio Studios, Dan and Evan, as always.
Yes, big shout out to Dan, the producer. Everybody, it wasn't just me. It wasn't just me. Dan put in so much hard work and so much effort, and I just have to make sure everybody knows that.
Awesome. Well, till next time, guys, go check out Jon Lodge, and we will catch up with you again later.
Walking alone through this life was the path I thought was right. I never needed anyone or anything. As I sit alone here at this bar, wondering just where you are and who you could be, anyone or anywhere. 'Cause these days I'm just so lonely, tired of always, the old me. Yeah, I need to fix this. I gotta find a way. 'Cause I wanna know, I wanna know, I wanna know you. I wanna know, I wanna know, I wanna know you. Does she like to laugh? Yeah. Does she sing when the world isn't looking? You raise your voice up to the sky. Do you like to paint? Look at the stars. Wonder just who we are and what the plan was for this place. Yeah, I don't know, but I wanna find what thoughts that are on your mind. We can talk all night and day. Yeah, I wanna know, I wanna know, I wanna know you. I wanna know, I wanna know, I wanna know you. Gotta leave this place, gotta leave this bar. Yeah, I need to be where you are. Can't stand this feeling anymore. 'Cause I